Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Chucky Season 2, Episode 8. So, if I were to have stated in the last week's episode that they probably should have just ended it on 7 episodes, still feeling that way. Episode 8 just kind of sucked. Really, Episode 8 is to tell us that this season overall is to be a just meh attempt. And the numerous times that they have to just go on and do this Chucky fourth wall breaking thing to just eat up more time is obviously just something that is getting annoying. It's like, seriously, you guys couldn't have gone on and killed people. Instead, you have to go on and have Chucky come in and just talk until the show is over. Wow. I'm blown away by that. I'm so thrilled by that. But when really thinking about it, that's not going to go on and all of a sudden make Chucky just go from like a cancellation for the third season. No, like this show is probably going to be like the juggernaut for like sci-fi and USA. So like really they're going to go on and do like tons of seasons and it's just going to dwindle down and just get worse as we go along, because really if this season just kind of felt like meh to me, I can just imagine what the third season will eventually be. There were some fun things in this season. The whole like selfie things that Chucky was doing and certain goofy Chucky characters that they introduced. There was some fun to be had there, but like there wasn't much surprises to this season, and there was very small amount of kills, even to the point where in this season finale there is to be obviously like, well, hey, if you're gonna go and kill people off, it's probably gonna be obviously these people that are going to die, because you can't kill off so and so, so and so, and so and so. So, who's left? Who's left to die? And so, like, because you have such a thin cast, you have like so many people that aren't really expendable. So, with that said, for this episode, we go on and do the obvious thing that I already thought that the Glenn and Glenda's story were going. I was like, well, obviously there's only one way to end this story, and it's the exact same way that I said a week ago. And we have Tiffany that is desperately trying to find the Belle doll, and we finally realize that Belle is going to finally have some importance on this, but they never came back to it ever that often. But so the season finale, I guess, could have been like, wow, to somebody. But we kind of just skip Thanksgiving and go right to Christmas Eve, as if this is some just merchandising opportunity. Like, hey man, like we want another extra month of Chucky products to get sold instead of just bottling it up into 2 episodes. Or bottling up into, I mean, 2 holidays, not 2 episodes. What did I mean by that? So, we had so much about this that was just a waste. So with that said, teeing up, what can we really tee up here? We have Jake and Lexi that go back to Michelle Cross's place. It seems that Lexi had gone on to rehab, and Jake is doing a lot of community service, as well as Lexi is, to where it seems like these characters just don't really have any lives. So, we seem to have Jake and Devin, who are still having this kind of lovers quarrel, but then it seems that they make up for it by the end, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Just a blah episode that is to continue to just be blah. So is Lexi ever gonna get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or maybe she like falls in love with a doll? Who cares at this point? Doesn't really matter. So we, by the end of this, like, they do an interesting thing with Dr. Mixter. They do an interesting thing with Belle, but everything in between is just like, okay, I guess I should be happy about this, but I'm not. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just double five this bad boy up. Let's go into the double five time territory. It's about that time again to, of course, go into spoiler time. Spoiler time is about that time to spoil this episode. I know it's very thin on the teeing up portion of this episode, but there's not really much to say, anyways. There's really not much to really go on about, like, besides, like, hey, we get some backstory between Dr. Mixter and Chucky, as if that really matters. So, let's go into this. So, from the last episode, we are showcasing Dr. Mixter run off with the Chucky doll, and before Andy is to be able to run off to get to this doll, it seems that somehow we have editing all the time in the world to have Chucky Prime possess Dr. Mixter and take over her body, and have them both switch between Chucky Prime now being Dr. Mixter and Dr. Mixter being Chucky Prime. So when Andy shoots this doll, we realize that that is Dr. Mixter, and now Kyle and Andy and all the kids are asking, like, well, hey, like, what is he seeing? What is he seeing here? Like, is his life flashing before his eyes? And so we look into the Chucky doll's eye and find out that we're really just seeing a young Charles talking to Dr. Mixter, and I guess this Charles had went on to see Dr. Mixter so much so that it's kind of like the Harley Quinn thing going on, where come to find out, I guess Dr. Mixter also has a crazy side to her, and everything that Chucky is telling her, she's like buying into, and she's like, yeah, hey, yeah, let's go on and let's just dance. Let's dance it out together. So we had Dr. Mixer that was to mention how rare these good guy dolls are, and that it seems that the one that she had with Chucky Prime was the last one. But then Dr. Mixer goes, as Chucky, goes back to her office to reveal in her safe that there's one left. And so she ends up dancing around with that, as well as also kind of just, like, kind of a little bit of, like, feeling herself up a little bit. Which is like, okay, all right, Chucky, yeah, like, if you're in a woman's body, you might as well cop a feel. But yeah, so we then, of course, have Chucky, who goes right back into the Chucky doll. So let's go on and let's talk about the Lexi Jake stuff. So we find our three kids, Devin, Lexi, and Jake, who have now, of course, had that school close after all of those murders, and Caroline ends up seeing the news bulletin of the school that had closed down because of all those murders. So and I'm wondering if any of those kids are eventually gonna, like, seek revenge for what had happened to their school, and how, like, that was the only thing that they had left. And, like, I would, like, have Chucky team up with whoever that kid will be, because that will be a really interesting story. I'm going to go on and help Chucky Season 3 write a really interesting episode, or hopefully a story arc, because this needs to go frickin' somewhere. It really does. So, we have Lexi that is to come to find out be in rehab, and she is now talking in a circle, and she is to mention about some monster that she is dealing with, and this monster is to not be Chucky, it's to be her mother. Because if Lexi cannot go on and ever blame herself, she has to go on and just immediately blame her mother, which technically via this episode, because she's kind of upped her like Michelle has really upped her being annoying persona, because this girl is to really desperately want her social media to just be the like, hey, I want to take this picture just so I can post it on social media. I want to go on and I want to do this video and do something good, only to make me look good on social media. And so, come to find out, there's probably a reason why Michelle has upped her game, even though she's still not upped her cleavage game. Man, do those things are front and center. But hey, this will probably be the last time I'll go on and get to mock Michelle for going on and giving me that sweet cleavage game. Cleavage! It is what it is. I'm sorry if anybody's to be offended by that, but I just thought it was so goofy. And I don't know, I don't think I realized it before, but now I just am making jokes about it because it's okay now. So Lexi is going on and stating that her monster is her mother, and we of course have Lexi who's asking everybody in the meeting. It's like, well, you know how my mom is. Yeah, she's a horrible person. So yeah, being in agreement with me. And so Jake is kind of in the background, just kind of going oh, well, all right. So we have Lexi and we have Jake who get dropped off. I guess they probably got Ubered or something. And so they're both walking off to Lexi's home. And so they're talking about their community service and how they don't really have any lives. So they have Lexi stating that Jake needs a place to stay, and Lexi's like, well, yeah, I think I have a plan for you recently to stay here. So Lexi is going on and talking to her mother that's all nice and yay, hi, yeah, because social media persona will find out. So Lexi is to go on and ask her mother, it's like, well, hey, Jake can stay here, right? And Michelle's like, well, of course he can. And then all of a sudden, Lexi is to state to Jake, it's like, well, hey, now I have to tell you that I have a gift for you. And that, of course, is the gift of Devin. So Devin ends up just coming from down the stairs like, hey, I'm here. Hey, look at me. And so we now have Lexi that is to tell her mother, it's like, well, yeah, you're going to let both of these kids just kind of stay here for the holidays. And Michelle's like, well, of course. And then she rips out her phone and she's like, Lexi, you know I had to do all of that for my social media. I have a live stream going on and I had to say all this stuff. And so Lexi's like, well, yeah, that's why I did it. So Michelle walks off. So we have Lexi stating that the gift to Jake was Devin, and that Devin was to state that the gift for Jake was him. And so Jake is like, well, now I have to go on and I have to give you a gift. And Devin's like, no, it's okay. We can be each other's gifts. And Jake is like, oh, no. Like, I need to go on and get you a gift. So Jake leaves for like 12 hours and then comes back with a gift that Devin doesn't even like. So Jake comes back with this gift to give to, of course, uh, Devin, which of course is to be this broadcasting equipment. And Devin's like, well, yeah, like, I did podcasting like a year ago and I'm done with it. Like, I'm over it. And I'm like, no, you should have started out, like, you should have, like, kept doing that again. That was, like, the one interesting thing about that guy was in season one when he was a podcaster. Now you're not doing that. And so we're just going to get this flat character that is really just a character that sucks. Okay, all right. So let's go on and let's cover some Glenn and let's cover some Chuck stuff. Let's chuck it up. So we have Chucky that is to now be Chucky, and so he's just kind of thumbing through these brochures because he's got to go on and do some Christmas shopping. And Chucky comes to find out that there is the quietest chainsaw. And so Chucky's like, oh my god, like, I have a credit card, I'm gonna buy this thing, isn't it great? And so we have Glenda that is watching over Glenn, and it seems like it's only a matter of time before Glenda's gonna die. And I'm just like, why do we have the doll? Why do we have the doll, Bruce? So we can learn to get ourselves back into that doll. If anybody is to go on and remember Batman Begins, where it's like, why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to get ourselves back up. Same thing here. So Glenda calls Tiffany and tells her that it's like, there's only so much time that Glenn has left. Tiffany, you need to make your way here to try and transfer Glenn's soul into the doll. So Tiffany is like, well, like, but as Tilly, like, I'm wanted for murder, and I don't know if I can make it into that hospital. And Glenda's like, well, I think I can go on and I can manage something. So Glenda goes through the halls and to knock over this cop's coffee to have him then go from the room. And so we have Tiffany coming in as this doctor. And so Glenda was telling Tiffany to be who she has soul-wise possessed into, who is Tilly, who is a great actor, and now she needs to put on this great performance. And what does she do? She just walks through the hall, and when one person is stated like, oh, Merry Christmas, and like Tiffany's like, oh, Merry Christmas, and then she walks by, it's like, what kind of performance is that? So we have Tiffany come into this room as this doctor, because nobody really checks on anything, I guess. So we come to find out that Tiffany is going to go on to be surprised by this cop that has come back and is to have this coffee. And so we're taking forever for this cop to do anything, whip out his gun, because more than likely Tiffany could be armed and dangerous, or just be a dangerous woman, so why not just whip out your gun right here and there? And if Tiffany does anything, shoot her? No? Alright. So, because we have Tiffany who's looking at this cop's cup, and the cop is like, oh, you're gonna try to put this coffee in my face. Tiffany's like, oh, no. And so instead, she grabs this vase and smacks the cop with the vase. And in my brain, I'm just like, wait a minute. Shouldn't that cop have seen that, whipped out his gun, and like done something? No? Okay, great. So it either was Tiffany that broke the brace broke the vase off the cop's head, or it was Glenda. But anyways, either way, a vase was broken. So we kind of want Tiffany that wants to go on and do more to this cop. But so let's kind of move on past that. So we come to find out that this cop is dead. The cop ends up getting killed. And we now find both Glenn and Glenda, who are no longer in their bodies. And Tilly ends up now with the Glenn doll, like, changing it slightly to have the Glenn doll look different. And so now we, of course, have the Glenn doll with this accent. And Tiffany's like, why are you doing that accent? And we, of course, have the Glenn doll that's like, well, I want to go, like, I want to go overseas. Like, I want to go to, like, the UK or whatever. So is that what we're going to kind of do for, like, are we going to do two different stories? Is that how we're going to, like, do it next season? Where it's going to be, like, cut away to Glenn in Britain, or Glenn, or Glenda in whatever. Like, are we going to kind of back and forth it now? That would actually be pretty interesting. But again, like, we should have just had like a number of Chucky dolls that are attacking people from random locations to, of course, increase the kill count. But again, that's just me. So we have, of course, let's get back to let's get back to the other fam, the Lexi and Jake story. So we have Jake, Devin, and Lexi, Caroline, Michelle, no Chucky doll. They're all at the dinner. They're all just eating away at their food. So we, of course, have, before everyone chows down, Michelle is stated like, well, I gotta post a picture for the gram before we even eat anything. And so after everyone goes on and eats, we then have Devin and Jake bicker again about the whole gift, and how Devin is stating on school, hey, like maybe you should have gone on and just given me money. Like, money would have been a good gift. And so, like, they're bickering back and forth like to like an old couple. And so really nothing comes from this. It's really just like, hey, like, you guys should figure out a way to just freaking kiss and make up. And so they technically do. By the time that they're all going on and going to sleep. And we have Jake and Devin that are to, of course, be by this mistletoe. So they kiss and they make up. Jake has to realize, like, yeah, like, I realize how much a mistake that is now to have gotten you that gift. It's like, well, it really just tells that Jake doesn't know Devin anymore. And he could have asked what he wanted for Christmas before he went out there and got him something. Or you really could have just got him a throwaway gift that obviously he probably would have wanted to just throw away. It's true. So we have Lexi going on and watching Jake and Devin kissing, and she's like, okay, like, that's enough of that. But then they end up kissing over the mistletoe one more time. I'm like, man, why not just go at it already? Just right on the TV. Just go on and do it. Just right here. Like, Lexi will probably, like, just put some drugs. Just give her some drugs. Like, just give her some Ambien or something. Help her to sleep. like really, really good, and you guys can just do whatever you want. 'Cause, yeah. So we now have Chucky that immediately knows where Lexi is, because there's only one place for her to be, because she's not in witness protection. So, and they naturally assumed that all the Chucky dolls were dead anyways, after it seemed that Chucky Prime was dead. Which they really should not have, like, assumed that. So, Chucky comes sliding down this chimney after we get this scenery shot of all these things going on. And so it seems that at first we have all of a sudden Caroline who is doing her rendition of The Night Before Christmas, but then all of a sudden Chucky comes in to be like, oh no, I'm gonna do my own rendition, and he ends up making it to like seem that he's gonna go on and slash for kids and so on and so forth. So we have all of a sudden Tiffany, who had seen through Michelle's social media, because Michelle had gone on to uh, do this whole thing of the manger scene, and so like showing Jesus being born, and she put all this together all for her social media, and so. But we have Michelle who says that, like, well, hey, if you don't have really uh, a baby for Jesus, just go on and just find any doll that your kid would have. So come to find out that doll ends being the Belle doll. So Tiffany looks for it right where it was, where supposedly Michelle left it, and it's gone. So Tiffany starts looking through the house to try to find it, and all of a sudden is to bump into Michelle in the process while she had heard something. Here's my thing. For Michelle to have gone on and realized that people have died in her home, her house had burned down, and so on and so forth. You would think Michelle, who had also been a past political person, you would have thought that this woman would have had an alarm system. No? Stupidity on her. So, Tiffany comes in and Michelle is to hear, like, oh my god, hey, yeah, oh, Tilly, oh yeah, I'm a big fan. Like, I'm not even gonna question that you're breaking into my house and trying to, like, steal from me. And justifiably enough, like, Tilly mentions about the Belle doll, and she's just like, well, I just really gotta have that Belle doll. And Michelle is just like, well, okay, that's kind of weird, with you also seemingly breaking into my home late at night. Just both things that would just trigger Michelle to realize that she is freaking dumb as a character. But then all of a sudden, we have Chucky with a Christmas hat and chainsaw and all, showing up behind Michelle, jumping in mid-air, now chopping Michelle in half. Can't say I'm going to miss this character, but with what Barbara had to go on to do with this character, really, like, she, like, did a lot with a character that had very little. So, yeah, so for I'm sure what they're gonna do in the next season is probably go on and have a number of any of these characters who at some point died in this show, they're just gonna bring them back. That's the whole thing. Like, a death is meaningless, but also, uh, like, we did have that sister Ruth death, so I was like, are they gonna bring her back also? So, and if anyways, like, I would just think that, like, Sister Ruth and that, like, Miss Fairchild, they look like the same person. Was it the same person? It seemed that way. So, because funny enough, guess where the kids end up? It's funny. So, But we have some cool moments that happen after this. After Michelle is to get chopped in half. So there's blood all over the place from Michelle getting chopped in half. Chucky is to be like, oh my god, like this chainsaw is the quietest chainsaw, and he like kisses it, and he's like, yeah, this is great. So now Chucky and Tiffany are having a conversation, and Chucky's asking Tiffany, it's like, well, hey, like, where is Glenn and Glenda? Because they need to be punished for what they had done, which is to kind of help out uh, the good guy side. And so we have Tiffany that states to Chucky, it's like, well, like Glenn and Glenda are dead, and Chucky's like, don't lie to me. And so we all of a sudden have Lexi that is to show herself, and we end up getting Lexi that now is to kind of take the chainsaw from out of Chucky's hands. And so now we have Lexi who's grabbing onto Chucky and is going to chop him up into little bitty pieces, because now Lexi is going to be more aggressive and kill Chucky, which I'm like, thank God, because that's what I've kind of been waiting for this whole entire season, is to some of these kids to just start to get knife happy. In all honesty, like some of these kids need to have killed, you know. So we have Tiffany that is to run off to the Bell doll, because that's the only thing that she has left to really go on and do. And so Tiffany finds herself getting stabbed by both Devin and both Jake. And so we end up having Caroline come into the hallway, and now Tiffany has a bargaining chip to try to get out of this with Caroline. And so when Lexi goes back to start talking to Tiffany and realizes that Caroline is there, Caroline is to mention that Chucky had stated that Caroline was adopted, and that Caroline was to be like under Chucky's control all along, and so on and so forth, even like pretending to help Lexi and all these things. So Lexi is trying to convince Caroline, it's like, oh, no, 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 you're not adopted, like, you're my sister. And so we have Tiffany and we have Caroline that leave, and so we go on to have at some point where Tiffany is getting this phone call after she's gone on and re-dyed her hair, and she ends up getting this phone call from Nika. And so we end up pulling off this like born identity kind of scene. It's probably one of the later films, but either way, it's one of those scenes. So we have Tiffany that's calling Nika, or we have Nika that's calling Tiffany, and so at one point we have Nika that mentions to Tiffany, it's like, I love what you did with your hair, having Tiffany realize that Nika is watching her. And so I'm like, yeah, this is like the Bourne movies, where at some point we consistently have Matt Damon who calls the one girl and just tell her, it's like, hey, like, get some rest, you look tired. Same thing. So when Tiffany is to go on and realize that she needs to get out of this persona, and just dyeing her hair won't do, and Nika is kind of coming after her. So Tiffany is to quickly try to possess herself into this doll, but come to find out the Bell doll was Chucky all along. Because we start to have this doll start to pull away itself, and is to show its real true persona, which of course was Chucky. and we have these contacts and everything being put into this doll. So I'm like, oh yeah, like that's actually a really like cool thing. Like we've seen, of course, in other like Chucky dolls and whatever, like we would see like this kind of tear away thing, and we would find out like the doll is much more like scarred up or whatever. And so I would just be like, oh, okay, all right, like so like they kind of did something similar to that, where it was like, oh wow, like that was actually a an interesting thing that they did here, but not good enough compared to the rest of this episode, like being a positive for me. I thought the episode was just bad. It was just really bad. So we have to draw to conclusions that Chucky does go on and kill Tiffany, or Tiffany just somehow gets away. I'm assuming the Tiffany gets away thing, because I don't think they want to kill off Tilly yet. I think they want to just use her for goofier stories. Uh, because what else do they have left to do with the show? Uh, I think other than that, I think most of this episode is to feel covered to me. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I did forget about. We did have uh, after this, we had Chucky going on and giving his seemingly Days of Christmas song, where it's like, my true love gave to me. And the first thing that he mentions is Liv Morgan dying. And then he's like, oh, wait, like we have to skip to like all the other ones. And so he goes to, like the 22nd one, and he just mentions all the other like deaths that were to happen in the season, and then he brings it all back to Liv Morgan dying at some point in the season, and then he's like, "Okay, all right, like we're calling it, we're wrapping it up," and I'm like, "Wow, that was an episode, that was a thing there, that was a thing they did for some goofy reason." So, with that said, we also have to cover what happens with the conclusion of the kids. So, we of course have Lexi that is now telling the cops what all had happened, and they're like, "All right, okay, all right." Even though like Lexi obviously has her fingerprints on the murder weapon, they're just like, "Oh no, 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 no!" Like obviously the Chucky doll did it. It makes all the sense in the world. Like we've had so many of these complaints in the past. So we have Mrs. Fairchild that just comes in, and she is to go on and take care of Jake, Devin, and Lexi, and I'm assuming just adopts them. And I'm just like, shouldn't Andy and Kyle adopt these kids? Because that's where I was thinking the show was going to end, anyways. Because immediately when they went back to Michelle, I was like, what? Like, she's gonna end up being dead. She's gonna end up being dead. Like, they're gonna have to end up with Andy and Kyle, and I think it's all just heading in that direction. And I'm assuming that they're probably, like, in the following season, like, guess who's probably gonna die in the following season? Probably Fairchild. And then the kids are just gonna end up with Andy and Kyle, because who else left can they not kill? And then they're just gonna have to do some work around. Man, in the third season, I hope they really add a number of cast members to this show. Desperately. It needs a lot of additional people so Chucky can just kill them all off. If they go on and in the first episode of season 3 and kill a huge chunk of people, I will be satisfied. But again, if they probably kill like a whole one person, I will be livid. Cause like, or if they kill one person, or if they kill 0 people, I will be ticked. Cause they'll be like this show is not as good as the first season. It just isn't. So that's it. I'm just gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this show, this season, so on, so forth. Probably a lot of people thought that it was great. Probably a lot of people thought the opposite of me. And that's sad because, like, I was to have gone on and watched like other movies of Chucky. Like I haven't seen all of them, obviously. Like you can see through the Chucky movies how many that I've seen, because every single one of those were like basically really like first time watching. Um, like there was some random Chucky scenes of other movies that I'd seen, but overall maybe at some point I might just dust out to just kind of watch all the rest of the Chucky movies, regardless of my enjoyment of them, for whatever reason. I don't know. They might have in between the ones that I've missed out on. They might have gotten better. There might have been interesting ones. But anyways, I'm just gonna get out of here. Goodbye, bye, bye, bye.